Hey guys, this is Mike. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about 22 long rifle ammunition. Over the years I've collected a wide variety of semi-automatic handguns that shoot 22 long rifle. I've collected rifles that are bolt action, lever action, and semi-automatic rifles. And over the years you find that some ammo seems to work well in some guns and other ammunition seems to work well in other guns. And there's a lot of talk about, brand X is just all there is. It works well in everything, and you need to only buy brand X, and brand Y is trash. And over the years, I've observed that there's really a significant difference in the way that ammunition is made as far as the shape of the projectile, how loose or tight the projectile is seated in the brass, and even very subtle things like the rim thickness of the different 22 long rifle ammunition. So I don't think that brand X is good and brand Y is bad. I think that there's just a big variation in the way that 22 long rifle ammunition is manufactured. And what I've found with experience is that certain firearms just like certain characteristics of ammo. And today what I'd like to do is review some of those characteristics so that you'll know what to look for when you go trying to find ammunition that's going to work in your particular firearm. The way I look at 22 long rifle ammunition, there's basically three tiers of quality and quality control when it comes to 22 long rifle. The top tier ammunition is the competition grade ammunition. If that's the kind of ammunition you're using routinely, then this video isn't really going to help you a whole lot. That ammunition has always been very expensive and it's very high quality. So that's really not what we're talking about today. Today we're going to talk about kind of what I would consider the mid-tier and the lower tier ammunition. And the mid-tier ammunition is the 22 long rifle ammunition that's for hunting, planking, and recreational target shooting, but not for competition. The mid-tier ammunition is the ammunition that you find that's typically boxed in individual boxes of 50 rounds, or for example, Cci boxes their ammunition in 100 rounds in a box. In the mid-level ammunition, this ammunition quality control is a little bit better than it's going to be for the lower tier ammunition. The lower tier ammunition is what we refer to as bulk pack ammunition. And that's really one of the most common ammunitions that I see bought today. The lower tier, the bulk pack ammunition, has a lower level of quality control in the manufacturing process. Now it's very important to understand that between these mid-tier individual boxed ammunitions and the ammunition that you find in the bulk boxes, I don't really think there's a huge difference in quality per se of each individual round. I think there is a significant difference in the quality control in the factories as they're being made. So it might not be unusual to find within a box of 550 bulk packed 22 long rifle rounds a round that has a badly deformed bullet that just slipped through quality control. And certainly you would expect to find a few more duds in the bulk packed ammunition compared to the individually boxed ammunition. There again, I think that's a result of the tighter quality control that's used during the manufacturing process. But in general, of the rounds that are good in the bulk pack ammunition, you'll get a fairly similar quality compared to the individual boxed ammunition. I think where you really get the biggest difference isn't in brand X versus brand Y, but it's in the difference in the shapes of the projectiles, the difference in the coatings of the projectiles, the difference in how tight or how loose the projectile is seated to the brass. And that's not to say that one way is better or worse than the other. The point is that some guns just like ammunition that has certain features, while other guns like ammunition that has totally different features. For example, over the years, I found that if you take a Remington Golden Bullet, it's a brass-cased ammo, it's a tiny bit hotter. When I run it in full auto, I can sense that the rate of fire is a little bit faster with this ammo, And so that tells me it's just got a little bit more power in the cycling of this ammo. But the golden tip has a very loose projectile. And while there are certain AR-15 or M16 uppers that I can run very well in full auto with the golden tip bullet, if I try to run that Remington golden tip in a lot of my 10/22 rifles, they just jam up and they don't work well at all. So what I'd like to do is let's go over the ammunition. We're going to look very closely at the rounds and we'll discuss the differences, and then we'll talk about why I think that's important when you go to buy ammunition. What I'd like to do now is take a real close look at some of the different rounds of .22 long rifle. I haven't included what I consider specialty rounds, and I haven't included the high quality competition target rounds, which basically I don't ever shoot because it's been so expensive. The specialty rounds are rounds like .22 long rifle tracer or .22 long rifle shot shells, the sniper subsonic, or the colibri, the round that has a very small projectile and no powder. So we're looking at the standard mid-tier and lower tier .22 long rifle ammunitions that are common for guys that are recreational target shooters, plinkers, and hunters. So what I've done is divide up the bullets in groups. You have the round nose lead bullets here, and then the lead bullets that are hollow point, and then this other page I have some plated bullets. And what I'd like to do is let's look very closely at each bullet, look at the details of the construction of the bullet, and then we'll talk a little bit about how that influences which bullet is going to run in which particular gun, and how you might use that information when you go to buy ammunition. So let's look at the round nose lead bullets first. I have the Federal Lightning. This is a boxed ammunition, so it's what I would consider mid-tier. The projectile is fairly blunt and round with no hollow point, 40 grain lead round nose bullet, and the projectile is very firmly seated, doesn't spin or move, okay? So it's a round nose lead. The other thing is it's got a moderate amount of wax filling to the bullet, and that also is something to consider as far as what kind of ammunition your gun likes. Some rounds have almost no filling of waxiness, and some rounds have a very thick wax coating, and we'll see that as we go along. So this is a Federal Lightning boxed ammunition. This is the Federal target grade round. Very similar shape. It is a bulk ammunition. It has a very tight seating of the projectile. And there again, kind of a moderate amount of waxy filling. And then this is Federal Champion. The Federal Champion looks a little shinier. Feels like it has a little bit less wax on it. Is a fairly round, blunt nose and very tightly seated projectile. This is the Winchester this is the Winchester Wildcat. It's individually boxed ammunition. The shape of the bullet is a little bit different. It has a moderate waxy fill to it, like the other bullets that we've looked at so far. Very similar. The collar area here is a little bit taller before you have the round shape of the bullet compared to the other Federal round nose bullets that we've looked at, but it's very similar. This is a Cci Quiet. This may cause significant problems in certain semi-automatics because it is designed to come out of the barrel between 700 and 800 feet per second. So it's underpowered ammunition. It has a tight projectile and a moderate amount of waxiness. This is a Remington target standard velocity. If you notice, the shape of the projectile is a little less bulky, a little more pointy on the front. The waxiness feels about the same as the others, kind of a moderate amount of waxiness. The projectile is very tightly seated. This is Aguila Mexican ammo. It feels like a little bit heavier wax coating, very tightly seated projectile, and the collar area once again is fairly long, but very similar. This ammo smells kind of funny when you shoot it, by the way. And then this is a Remington Thunderbolt. Looks a little shinier and smoother, and feels a little smoother. This feels like if it has wax, which it does, I'm sure, it's a very light coating of wax. So that has a different feel. The projectile is seated fairly tightly, doesn't move. And then we have two hollow point leads. This is Fiocchi Subsonic. Has a very grayish appearance, and when you touch this, it feels like you're rubbing your finger on a candle. It's very, very waxy. It's got a small hollow point. The projectile is very tightly seated. So this has a very heavy wax compared to the other lead bullets that we've looked at so far. A small hollow point. The overall shape of the bullet is similar to the others we've looked at, except the very front is a little flat. You see a little flatness right there where the hollow point is. And this is fairly weak as well. The Fiocchi Subsonic. I found a lot of different rifles and handguns that won't work reliably. I think this is just a little underpowered. And then the last non-coated round that we'll look at, this is Winchester Expert. It's a bulk packed ammo. If you look, the shape of this is very different. It's very blunt nosed, very large, hollow point. And then one of the significant differences here is if you wiggle this bullet, it moves. It is very loose. It's very loosely seated. And you'd think that this would not feed in anything, but I've actually, the M11 full auto conversion by Richard Lage will eat this bullet up. And it just completely shocked me because it's such a loose projectile. I thought in full auto, and it's so blunt, I thought that it just wouldn't run, and it's the one that runs the best in the M11, specifically in 22 long rifle. Now on the other page, we have the plated bullets. The first one is the only one I have that is actually brass plated rather than copper plated. This is the Remington Golden Bullet, 36 grain bullet, hollow point. And like I commented, I think earlier on, this round I found to be a little bit hotter when you're running in full auto. And my AR-15 M16 full auto conversions love this particular round. It runs very well in the AR-15 conversion, but it chokes my 1022s. Once again, in this round, if you notice, if I hold the brass, I can just twist the projectile very easily. And if you wiggle it, the projectile is very loose. So this is the second bullet we've looked at where it has a very loose projectile, a little bit hotter as far as the powder charge goes. Some guns love it and some guns hate it. This is one that a lot of people swear by. This is the CCI 40 grain mini mag. It has a very nice shaped, round, non-hollow point, copper plated 40 grain projectile. This is individually boxed. It is not bulk boxed or bulk packed. The projectile is very tight. So it has a very smooth contour. The waxiness here, it has a little bit, kind of what I would consider a moderate amount of waxy feel to it. A good all-around projectile. By the way, on the golden bullet here, it does have a very mild amount of waxiness as well. Then we have an arms core Subsonic. This is the arms core 36 grain Subsonic. It is packed in individual boxes. Because it's subsonic, you do have to consider that. It might be a little underpowered in some guns. Has a moderate amount of waxiness to it and a very tight projectile. Notice the shape, a little blunt on the tip. There again, it's a hollow point. Not nearly as blunt as the Winchester. Now, here is the Winchester Dynapoint. It is a hollow point. It has a very tiny hollow point. Copper plated. Very tight projectile. This is a 40 grain hollow point bullet. The Winchester Dynapoint. It is bulk packed. Now this is the Winchester 333. It's called. It is a bulk packed round. It is shaped just like the other Winchester Expert, we call it, the one that does not have the copper plating. This has a very, very blunt nose, very large hollow point. It's 36 grains, and once again, when you wiggle this, the projectile moves. I don't know if you can appreciate that, but you can easily spin the projectile. Hold the brass and you can spin the projectile very easily. So this is a loose, very blunt nose, and you have to keep that in mind when you know what kind of ammunition your gun likes. Then we have the Federal Bulk Pack, a very common ammunition. It's got a very small hollow point, 36 grain, almost looks a little burnished in the copper plating, has a kind of a light waxy feel, doesn't feel like there's a lot of wax. It has a more pointed shape to the projectile, and then the little tiny blunt nose for the small hollow point. And once again, it's tightly seated in the brass. And then the last one that we want to look up close, and then we'll have a little discussion. This is a Aguila called Super Extra. It's a 40 grain, round nose, no hollow point, individually boxed. And once again, I found that the Mexican ammo shoots well in a lot of different guns, but it smells really funny when you shoot it. This is a very tightly seated bullet. Okay, so let's just talk about the differences and what they mean. So we've looked up close at the construction differences between some of these 22 long rifle bullets. And you're saying, well, okay, big deal. So 22 long rifle is very different. It doesn't work in all guns, and I have to just figure it out. Well, what's the take-home lesson today? What I hope that you can get out of this is there are basic differences that you can look for in 22 long rifle ammunition. One big difference is the projectile loose or is the projectile tight? Some guns do very well with a loose projectile, and so you need to keep that in mind. Other guns do very poorly with a loose projectile and need a really tight seated projectile to function well. So let's just say you've got a gun and you went to your local gun shop, you picked up a new 22 long rifle semi-automatic handgun, and your local gun dealer recommended brand X ammo he happens to have in stock, and so he gives you a few boxes of that and you take it home and it works very well. Well, that's great. The point is, look at that ammo. Decide what are the characteristics of that ammo. Does it have a thick waxy fill? Does it have a mild waxy fill? Is the projectile blunt? Is it very narrow at the point? Is it a hollow point or not a hollow point? Is it plated or not plated? And more importantly, is the projectile loose or is it tightly seated? And then if you run out of ammo and you need more ammo and you go back to your local gun shop and he says, well, we're all out of brand X. We have brand Y and Z, and you have two brands to choose from. Look at the ammo. Remember what your gun liked as far as the characteristics of the ammo. And then if he has ammo that is closely matched to the kinds of rounds that your gun liked, then that's the one you want to buy. In other words, he may have some Winchester 333 bulk pack that has a very blunt nose and a very loose projectile, but your gun liked that Federal bulk pack that he had initially. And the Federal bulk pack has a very pointy, very tight projectile, but he doesn't have that anymore. So the Winchester, you're thinking that's probably not going to work, and I think you're probably right. So you look at brand Z and see if the projectile is tight and more narrow at the point. If it's a tight projectile and narrow at the point, then you're more likely to have good luck choosing that ammo as the one that's going to work in that gun. Another example is if you just get a different gun altogether, you still have some of your ammo left, you go out and you shoot it, and that gun doesn't work worth a flip. You think, well, I've got a bad gun. This ammo worked great in my first gun, but it's not working in this one. There again, you have to pick out the ammo that's going to work for that gun. Look at the ammo you have that's not working, and if that ammo that's not working is a very tight, pointy projectile, then you might want to try something like the Winchester. Like I said, I've been shocked. That's a very blunt round, and it's just hard to believe that some guns will eat that stuff and some guns just absolutely love it. So the point is, find out the characteristics of the ammunition that your gun likes, and then if you have to buy more ammunition, look for ammunition that has those same characteristics. I hope you found this useful. It's been fun talking to you. If you enjoyed the video, please like it on YouTube. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel if you found our videos interesting or informative. If you have any suggestions or ideas about future videos, please post those. We like to hear those. We've got a long list of videos coming down the pike, and we'll try to do everything we can to address any ideas or thoughts you have about future videos as well. It's been fun, and we'll see you next time.